What's up, everybody? Matt Kajeski here, back again with the Stokastic channel, talking some college football DFS for one of the last times this season. Monday, we've got a 4-game slate, but before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you by No House Advantage, and No House Advantage is providing a new and unique way to take a look at player props. A couple varieties. They have pick'em contests. That is you versus other people in tournament style play, making lineups of player props on a confidence interval. Then if you win, you get to share the prizes, and they have big ones up to $25,000. And a lot of these are overlaying. That means even if the tournament doesn't fill, they're still paying out all those prizes. So make sure to take a look at those. They also have Verse the House, which is more your standard player props, you taking the lines that they have posted, making lineups with them where you can up to 21x. And first match deposit bonus up to $100 when you click the link in the video description below. So make sure to take advantage of that. Let's dive into it. We'll bring you guys behind the glass here and talk about some of these DFS plays. We do not have FanDuel pricing per usual. So we'll start with DraftKings. First game is Illinois-Mississippi State, 2.5-point spread, 46 total. That spread is in favor of Mississippi State. Illinois, they're 89th in pace, 42% pass rate. Tommy DeVito is a pure game manager to his core. 70 rushing yards this year, averages 199.5 as a passer on 28 attempts. The total in this game is so bad. Tommy DeVito is such a poor ceiling. You need really good touchdown luck on the ground for him to succeed here. He's just not a good play outside of the larger field tournaments overall. The backfield, you lose Chase Brown, he opted out. And luckily, Josh McCray is coming back, which means this is probably going to be a committee. The coaching staff has talked about it being a committee between Reggie Love and Josh McCray. Don't have a ton of interest in the situation, not knowing the split. McCray is really cheap at $3,200, so you could probably look at him as a salary saver. But Reggie Love's not the biggest back. He's probably just going to be more of a change of pace here. It's tough. We have no idea what the split's going to look like. So I'm more willing to gamble on the cheaper player, but I think you could throw darts at both ultimately. Receiving game is very difficult to trust. Everything we talked about with DeVito stems down to the pass catchers. You have Isaiah Williams as the number one, averages 50 yards per game on 7.7 targets. Then it's Pat Bryant and Casey Washington. Brian Hightower is also involved. It's kind of messy here once you get behind Isaiah. So from a route perspective, pulling these up right now, got to scroll to Illinois. Excuse me here. Last game, oh my gosh, is exactly 55% for Hightower, Pat Bryant, and Casey Washington. Isaiah was the only one at 91%. They rotate tight ends. Yeah, it's pretty rough, but throwing some darts behind these pass catchers, it would be Pat Bryant 2 for me. And then I think Brian Hightower would be third and Casey would be fourth. Going to the other side, Mississippi State running the air raid, 45th in pace, 68.5% pass rate. Got the Mike Leach angle here. Unfortunately, his loss. They should be motivated and playing for him. Will Rogers averages 307 passing yards per game. He needs it because he takes so many sacks, 24 in the year, doesn't run, has negative 172 rush yards. So you're starting in a hole every time you play Will Rogers, but he often goes over that 300-yard bonus, so he's always in consideration for me as a stacking piece. I think he's a top 3 or 4 option on the slate, maybe number 5, somewhere in there. Running back Dylan Johnson transferred, which means you should mostly see Jaquavius Marks here. Simeon Price hasn't played in quite a while, so perhaps he functions as a change of pace. I don't know his injury status, but Dylan Johnson and Jaquavius Marks had essentially functioned as a 50-50 committee. And now you remove Johnson. And they also lost J.J. Jernigan to the portal here too. So it's not just Johnson who's gone. Got a couple backs here that probably gives Jaquavius Marks a good role here. He has an awesome pass catching role already. So I have a lot of interest in Marks. At receiver, you lose Ra Thomas. They also lost Christian Ford, who doesn't really play much for this team. But losing Ra, I think that kind of just consolidates targets for Rufus Harvey, Caleb Ducking, Lydetrick Griffin, Jaden Wally, and Austin Williams. Those are your main targets here. Routes are volatile here, so I'll read them off, but you just have to know this does ebb and flow a little bit. Like Rufus Harvey, for reference, hasn't eclipsed 40% of the routes in the last 2 games. Then you have Ra Thomas vacating about 50% of the routes. Caleb ducking, he's been all over the place, 55% to 35% to 66%. Then you have Leidich Griffin below 40% the last 2 games, 4 of the last 5. Jaden Wally jumped up to a 57% route rate in the last game. Justin Robinson's been more involved recently, but he hasn't eclipsed 40% of the routes in 3 straight games. Austin Williams went from 60% to 25%, back up to 43%. There's just no rhyme or reason to what Mississippi State is doing. I think you're basically breaking ties based on who's been the most efficient. That would be number 1, Harvey, number 2, ducking, number 3, Leidich Griffin. Then number 4 would be Jaden Wally, number 5, Austin Williams. Robinson's a little too expensive for my liking with his really poor route rate, but this is a dart throw extraordinaire type situation. Second game, LSU takes on Purdue, 15-point spread in favor of the Tigers, 54 total. LSU's 51st in pace, 50% pass rate, probably a little lower here. They're going to kill Purdue, it looks like. Jaden Daniels, he's back. 818 rush yards for him. He was injured towards the end of the year, so I'm curious to what capacity he plays. 29 attempts per game passing, 213 yards. Not great as a passer, and the mobility being a question definitely raises question for Daniels. Behind him would be Garrett Nussmeier, who's a rocket arm style prospect. Haven't seen much of him. Backfield, I think Josh Williams comes back. Don't know that for a fact. This is my first look, so look up Josh Williams for sure. Otherwise, John Emery and Noah Cain had been splitting work 50-50 here. Neither are particularly good values, but you're a massive favorite against Purdue. These guys deserve looks, especially Cain at 4,700. He's out-carried Emery. Now in 3 straight games, you could be looking at like a 60-40 split potentially between these guys. Josh Williams, I would expect to be back. I know he was just banged up and questionable ahead of their last game, but haven't checked his injury status. He had been the lead back prior to injury. And that worst case scenario, if he's back, 3-way committee at the running back position. As usual, watch warmups. At receiver, Keyshawn Boutte opted out of this game. Jared Jenkins opted out of this game. And then we had Jack Beck transfer. So Malik Neighbors should be the bona fide number 1 here. No question about it. The number 2 should be Brian Thomas. And then the number 3, assuming he's healthy, would be Kyron Lacey. Kyron Lacey did get banged up at the end of the year. So watch his status. If he doesn't play, we run into a situation where who is actually suiting up at this wide receiver 3 spot for LSU? And I'll defer to the routes here. Most recent game, Neighbors, 72%. You had Boutte, who vacates 77%. Brian Thomas was at 51%. Again, I think that rises without Jenkins and Beck. And then Lacey only got to 26%. Again, he got hurt. So watch his status. I don't know who the number 3 is. The next most active receiver in terms of routes run has been Chris Hilton. He hasn't received a target since, I don't know, man. That's like been 6 weeks or more with Chris Hilton. Look at the depth chart and guess, but this is a situation to monitor. I haven't done projections. We'll have a clear idea of this later. The way the schedule worked out, had to record this before any of that. Tight end Mason Taylor, he plays on almost every single route. He's a player you could look to as a salary saver potentially at 3,800. Not the most targeted player, but he is out there almost every single play. Again, to rank them for DFS, I think Neighbors is 1. Number 2 is clearly Brian Thomas. 3 would be Lacey if active, and then have to do some digging on the wide receiver 3. I don't know why Chris Hilton hasn't had a target in recent weeks. I don't know if it's injury or if he just isn't involved. I tend to think it's the latter, but we'll do some digging and find out, and it'll be updated in the projections. Purdue, 53rd in pace, 58% pass rate. You lose your quarterback, Aiden O'Connell here, which is a massive loss for this team. And there's really opt-outs all over the place. So this is going to be tough for Purdue, and why you see the spread is crazy as it is. But from this standpoint now, I mean, who plays quarterback for this team? I'm trying to find it right as we speak. I do not know. Again, this is my first look. And yeah, I don't know. We'll have to do some digging here. This is riveting radio. I would guess it's Austin Burton. He has the most attempts this year, 42 rush yards. Maybe they use multiple quarterbacks. I mean, they've been active in the transfer portal, taking guys. So you could throw a dart here. The team total is super low. I probably wouldn't. Again, I think it's Burton, but I don't know that for sure. We'll do some digging later today to find out. So make sure you look at the updated projections. Regardless of who starts, you might be looking at multiple quarterbacks, and none of them are going to be good plays for DFS. Running back, Kobe Lewis transferred. Devin Mockabee has been the lead back regardless. The Kobe Lewis transfer doesn't really mean much here. King Doru hasn't played in a long time here. I don't know if he's healthy, so he's a guy to watch. Could be a timeshare to some degree if he comes back. I just pulled it up, listed as questionable allegedly. I don't know. We'll see. But Mockabee probably leads his backfield regardless. Big underdogs here. Mockabee does have a good pass catching role. He has at least 5 targets in 3 of the last 4 games, and he got hurt in the other one. So this is solid for Mockabee. I think he's a decent contrarian spend at the position. At receiver, Charlie Jones opted out. He vacates 30.5% of the targets. Payne Durham also opted out. He's the next most targeted player, 15% target share. Together, they vacate over 1,900 yards. Charlie Jones is averaging over 100 yards per game. This is going to likely lead to TJ Sheffield, Tyrone Tracy, Mershawn Rice to some order as the top receivers here. I'll pull the routes up so we could maybe try to decipher this a little bit. We had TJ Sheffield at 45%. Tyrone Tracy's been below 10. Mershawn Rice has been at 53. Deion Burks has been at 35, so it appears Deion Burks is ahead of Tyrone Tracy. Abdur Rahman Yassin, 9%. Pretty rough back here. Tight end should be Paul Peferi, who's been about a 20% route rate guy all year. But again, you lose Durham, who's your receiving tight end. Peferi, I would expect to step up. And then these are pretty cheap receivers. I don't know how much they changed the offense. I wouldn't expect it too much, but Sheffield at 51. From there, Mershawn Rice at 47. Deion Burks at the stone man. I would rather play Dirks over Tyrone Tracy right now, it appears. But Tyrone Tracy has this weird run game role. He has at least one carry at 3 straight games. Peferi is another Stoneman guy you could look at. It's pretty ugly for Purdue. Don't think they score a lot of points. You probably want to limit this to just 1 or 2 guys in your lineup. Better games ahead. Tulane takes on USC. 63.5 total here. 2-point spread in favor of USC. Tulane 74th in pace. 42.5% pass rate for Tulane. Mostly intact here. Michael Pratt's going to play in this game. He's mobile. 395 rush yards. Averages 230.5 as a passer on 27 attempts. That is Pratt. He's kind of expensive here, but he is one of the better signal callers in the slate. I think he's firmly in the top half of DFS plays. But the guy we really want to talk about is Tajay Spears. Just a phenomenal role for him. 18.5 touches per game, averaged over 100 rushing yards. Good pass catcher is Spears. Not the most targeted, but he did see 3 targets in their most recent game, the conference championship. He's a rock-solid play. For receivers, you basically just have Dede McDougal gone from the team. But Deuce Watts and Shea Wyatt are very much in play for a team that has somewhat consolidated their routes in recent weeks. You look, Deuce Watts went up to 74% last week. Shea Wyatt, he's been above 80% in 3 straight games, which is rare for a Tulane offense. That came at the expense of Lawrence Keys. You still have Jaquan Jackson as the wide receiver 3. And Tyrek James is the tight end. It looks like he might have gotten hurt. He just had an 8% route rate in the last game. And Alex Bauman was at 53%. Tyrek James is the starter all season long, so watch his status. On the other side, for USC, Caleb Williams expected to play here. USC is 83rd in pace, 53% pass rate. Williams is the best quarterback on the play if you can guarantee full health, which you can't. He has a hamstring injury, which he's going to be playing through. But averages 314 through the air, and has accumulated another 372 on the year on the ground. He's just the best play in the slate if you can guarantee full health. Backfield, Austin Jones has a feature back role, really good role too. He has at least 19 touches, in 3 straight games. Too cheap in terms of price. Tougher matchup, but Tulane definitely has a weakness on the ground compared to their pass game. Again, I think Caleb Williams is strong enough to beat them through the air regardless, but Austin Jones, really good price tag on him. Love him as a play. Again, no Travis Dye. Excuse me. At receiver, Jordan Addison opts out. That's the biggest news here. But you still have Taj Washington, Mario Williams, Brendan Rice, Kyle Ford. This is a very strong position for USC, so I'm not sure the Addison news is that impactful, especially considering he missed a large portion of the year. I think right away, Taj and Mario are full-time players, over 70% of the routes for both of them. Then you had Kyle Ford at 56, Brendan Rice at 46, essentially splitting the rest of the work there. You probably do see some Terrell Bynum and Michael Jackson, who had been playing rotationally for this team previously, but we didn't see them much in the conference championship when they needed to throw all their chips down. But I would expect a rotational role there. It is also a rotation at tight end, which makes it impossible to target. Our final game, we head to Utah, Penn State, 1-point spread in favor of Utah, 52.5 total. Utah really slow, 107 to pace, 44.8% pass rate. Cam Rising's last run, or so it seems, we'll see how much he plays, but he's good. Good mobility, 409 yards on the ground this year, averages 244.5 through the air on 30.5 attempts. He's a solid play here overall. Penn State has great coverage, but they lose Joey Porter Jr., should open things up for Rising. The backfield is going to be a committee looking mostly like it's going to be split between Micah Bernard as the pass catching back and Jaquindon Jackson as a two-down grinder. Hard to play Jackson because, well, actually, DraftKings changed him to a running back. That's awesome. I was scared that he was still listed as a QB. Never mind. Jaquindon Jackson, pretty good play here. He's been more efficient than Bernard on fewer attempts. So I think he has a lot of upside as touchdown score, anything like that. Bernard should be the pass catcher, though. It's going to be a 50-50 split. Pass catchers, Kincaid, he's out. He leaves the team. So you're looking at Devon Vele, Money Parks, and Jalen Dixon as your top three. Thomas Yasmin should be the next man up at tight end. They're getting really thin at that position. So ultimately, I would expect this to be number one, Vele. I think he got hurt in the last game. He only had a 22% route rate. So watch Vele. But then Money Parks was at 65%. Jalen Dixon was at 73%. And Makai Cope was at 62%. Solomon Enos, 43%. Again, I would expect some of those players like Cope and Enos to see their route rate go down with a fully healthy Vele. But they use five guys legitimately. I think Vele is probably your best bet for his ceiling, but ultimately, I don't feel good about any of the Utah pass catchers outside of Kincaid, who we don't have anymore, unfortunately. Vele doesn't have more than one target in 2 straight games. Otherwise, I'm fine just paying down. Money Parks is still cheap. Yasmin at 51, he probably works into a much larger role without Kincaid on the field, but I don't think they're going to do as much 12 personnel anymore now that they don't have Kincaid and Yasmin together. Be interesting to see what they do because they haven't really used another tight end. Anyway, we'll move on to Penn State. So this team is 66th in pace, 47.7% pass rate. Sean Clifford's still there. Probably split some time with Drew Allar in this game, making him hard to trust. He does have some mobility, not much, 177 on the ground, averages 212 as a passer. It's the bowl game. Allar's the future. They're probably going to use both. Backfield's a 50-50 committee between Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Nothing separates them other than Nick Singleton's been better, but they've both been pretty good, so this is a two-headed monster. I think I'd rather take some shots on Spears and Austin Jones and some of the other committee backs over this situation, but it definitely has upside. For receiver, you lose Parker Washington, so Mitch Tinsley steps up as the number one. Keontae Lambert-Smith should be the 2 here, and you've got multiple tight ends on the roster. This is probably a passing attack to avoid for the most part, but I think you could throw a dart here on 1 or 2 guys. The number 3 receiver was Harrison Wallace. Kind of split work a little bit here. Again, this is one of the heavier 12 personnel teams in the country with Brenton Strange involved, Theo Johnson involved, Tyler Warren involved. So you could throw some shots on one of those guys overall as well, I think is definitely something you can do. I don't believe any of the tight ends opted out. I'm trying to find that right now, but it looks like everybody from this game outside of the DBs for Penn State looks like they're pretty intact. So don't have any news of tight end opt-outs. So I think you could maybe use those guys in that case, but I would watch their status closely. Again, the number 1 for me would be Strange. Anyway, that'll do it for us with the slate. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments section what you think. And it was a quicker video, more of a first look due to the timing. But we'll be back with a live before lock, shockingly. But we'll have a national championship video as well. Stick around for that. Otherwise, leave a comment, hit the thumbs up button on the way out. That helps us a ton. Reach out to me on Twitter if you'd like, @Matt_Gajeski. Otherwise, good luck, and we'll see you next time.